Hello everyone, it has been a while. Today's video is going to be a bit different since it's going to be talking about foreign policy. And I will say that I, quite frankly, hate foreign policy, at least how it is presented in the news. 9 times out of 10, Americans only get the news on foreign policy when something has gone completely wrong, whether it's a terrorist attack, an assassination, or an invasion. In many cases, war and bad news is how Americans learn geography. And with that context in mind, I can't help but understand why people distrust the media. And it is in that environment that general distrust of the media apparatus lends itself to creators who, despite their charisma and rising following, unwittingly contribute to the rise of the expansionist militarism of countries like Russia through their failure to critically examine their intentions. The most recent example of this is Hasan Piker, whose recent videos on the conflict between Ukraine and Russia have sparked a debate over his coverage and over whether or not it gave false impressions that America and NATO were the aggressors. For nearly a month, Hasan made several videos arguing that Russia was not going to invade and that the media reaction to the military buildup along the Ukrainian border was an extension of the State Department and US imperialism. His first video, titled "Should the US Get Involved in Ukraine?", argued that America's history of interventionism continues through its political and military influence, creating the tensions that motivate Russia's deployment of troops on the border.
Are you saying we should go to war with Russia over Ukraine? Oh, totally, dude. If there's one thing you guys know about me, I love war. I'm a big fan of war. Like, I can't get enough of it. You know, stonks are not doing well, so I'm excited for the defense stonks to, go to the moon this upcoming week. You know, it's very cool. I'm a big fan of war. Some might even say I'm the god of war. I'm like Kratos, TikTok is pushing Philly D's Ukraine videos about Ukraine. They're getting so many views this name. Check out all of his last few videos. Holy dude. What's going on with Germany and Russia? Peace talks between US and Russia fail again. Dude, war is good, baby. War is good for the ratings. Oh my God, Philip DeFranco's channel just became, Philip the State Department. Oh, that was so bad. Let's get back to the drawing board on that one. So here's the reality though, okay? The thing is, like, for people like Philip DeFranco and the average American and all of your liberal friends, of course they're gonna be like, yeah, we got to do everything we can to defend Ukraine or whatever, because like that's what the media is telling them. They're not going to think about it beyond the point of like, manufacturing consent doesn't work this way, okay? Manufacturing consent doesn't work in the way that you think, where like people are getting together and deciding like, we should do this, we should be pro-war. It's more so about people that get elevated to those positions within media for having that perspective naturally and organically, right? That's it.
To add further context to some of the issues with his statements, Hasan has also previously argued that Crimea is a legitimate seizure of territory because the residents supported the decision to join Russia and because of its history and ethnic ties to the country.
What do you call Crimea? I call it a part of Russian territory, bitch. That's what I call Crimea. I call it Crimea River, a Russian river. Russia's historic access into the Black Sea, Crimea, that's like historically fucking ethnically all Russian, that is totally fine with the annexation according to Western fucking sources that conducted polls after the original referendum.
Nor is it the first time that he has argued this position. In fact, he has doubled down on it multiple times.
So annexation of Crimea and the war in Donbass were not invasions, got it. Donbass is different than Crimea, and Crimea is an annexation that is, in my opinion, justifiable. It is a part of Russia, okay? You might not believe it. The people of Crimea agree with it.
Of course, the reality is much more complicated than that. For one, Russia claims that over 90% of Crimeans voted in favor of the referendum. This is despite Russia's own Human Rights Council showing that the vote was significantly lower and that at most 30% of eligible Crimeans voted in the referendum. Additionally, reports have also suggested that there were attempts to suppress opposition voting. Not to mention the fact that the referendum was held under a military occupation with unmarked Russian troops and allies. In that environment, it would be unreasonable for us to expect the residents of Crimea to vote without the underlying idea of coercion and violence on their mind. If Crimea was a justified annexation based on the will of the people, why did Putin invade before a referendum was held? Why not wait and see what the people want? The reality is that there was no intention of respecting these people's wishes, regardless of how they voted. Sending in the military, by its very nature, is a coercive act that shows what leadership wants to happen with the implicit threat of lethal force behind it. And that is the problem with Hasan's analysis. Hasan, understandably, is distrustful of American intelligence, but that distrust is applied uncritically and lends itself to an illegal occupation, and it extends beyond just the Crimean issue. You can see this attitude of distrust on display in much of his comments when presented with the Biden administration statements regarding Russian plans.
Possible for there is no economic interest there. It would be virtually impossible for them to have a fucking sustained ground invasion in Ukraine. That would be psychotic, even if the Western forces did not fucking actually help out. You guys are literally QAnon. I'm sorry, West Elm Caleb, you are literally a liberal QAnon Andy, okay? You are doing the exact same copium that motherfucking QAnon people do, okay? Libanon, all the way, dude, Blueanon. It's wild. They literally were just like, dude, they're going to seize the treasure trove of data at the heart of Kiev. And actually, like, right now, my sources are telling me Vladimir Putin has literally got a sniper rifle trained on every like Ukrainian leader. And he's waiting for the execution codes. Like, and then you kept saying that for months. And now that it's not happening, and I kept saying, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. What did everybody say? What the fuck did everybody say when I kept saying, that's not going to happen? You're crazy. They kept saying, you're fucking in the pocket of Vladimir Putin. You're so fucking wrong. It's definitely going to happen. It's happening already. You really are the left's Rush Limbaugh. But I was right. I was 100% right. Like, I got fucking liberals schizo posting on the fucking timeline about an inevitable invasion, okay? Just actual fucking land war in Ukraine. All of this stuff. And I was 100% right. And now, liberals who literally said, no, Russia is going to do this. Russia is going to do this. Russia is the bloodthirsty psychos at the fucking door. What happened, dude? Now they're going to turn around and say, oh, it's because of NATO. It's because of NATO that they stopped. Yeah.
To be clear, it is not unreasonable to distrust the American government or to question intelligence releases by the State Department or by the media. It is a necessary part of understanding the complicated interests that influence foreign policy. However, when that skepticism becomes a blanket justification for disregarding reports of troop movements or warnings about the intentions of the Russian government, that skepticism becomes a bias that leads commentators to make wide pronouncements that are based in nothing but speculation and preference for one nation over another. To be fair to Hasan, after Russian troops were deployed into eastern Ukraine, he released a statement on Twitter admitting that he was wrong about Ukraine and Russia, and released a video on his channel admitting the same. But even in that video, Hasan downplayed the reports that suggested Russia may be targeting Ukrainians if they invade further, and he has argued that those intelligence reports are lies against Russia.
Be prepared to meet with President Putin if President Putin stood down from his invasion. But at this point, we can't say anything other than indications on the ground look like Russia is still moving forward.
How much hope do you have for diplomacy at this point?
We never give up hope on diplomacy until the missiles fly or the tanks roll. But
yeah, totally. If there's one thing that America loves, it's the diplomacy and diplomatic talks. Bro, they literally they fucking released intelligence from questionable sources about how Russia had a kill list of Ukrainians like earlier today. That's not diplomacy, motherfucker. You are 1000% just like trying to fucking drum up as much fear as you possibly can. They did that like this morning. That's not diplomacy. You're just fucking lying about your foreign adversary to like gear up and freak people the fuck out, dude.
Again, the same distrust comes up without any consideration of the Russians' history with assassinating figures they do not approve of. Again, the same level of certainty is espoused without any exculpatory evidence being provided. It could very well be false that Russia has a kill list for Ukrainians, but nowhere in Hasan's video or commentary is evidence examined because he does not have the means to examine that evidence. Instead of admitting that he does not know whether or not these reports are accurate, Hasan dismisses claims that he can't adequately deal with. And that is exactly why he had this blind spot in the first place. When dealing with nations in conflict, it is critical to remember that neither side is going to be completely honest. And it is equally important to remember that using one incident as a framework for your overarching position is not useful. Prescribing a previous example of a government lying as if it is the defining feature of its policymaking removes the interests of other countries in favor of a simplistic narrative of supposed malice on the part of a singular faction. That is not adequate foreign policy, and it will only lead to failure. Had Hasan examined or even brought up Russia's history of military intervention in countries like Georgia, Belarus, or Moldova, he may have been able to notice the pattern of behavior that Russia has fallen into over the last several decades, namely their increasing militarism. Now, I don't think Hasan is a pro-Russia imperialist, as some have argued, but I do think that he, like many others, have let their distrust of US intelligence and interests blind them to the expansionist tendencies and violations of international law that other countries engage in. If the left is to adequately address foreign policy in the future, figures with larger platforms need to be just as critical of other countries, particularly Russia, when dealing with their claims. I'm glad that Hasan has admitted he was wrong, and I want to give him the credit he deserves for admitting he made a mistake. It's not easy to admit you were wrong to hundreds of thousands of people, but so long as his approach to foreign policy remains the same, these mistakes will likely repeat themselves. I hope that I'm wrong, but considering what just happened with him, I sincerely doubt it.